So with no further ado, for the world premiere of his directorial debut as a feature filmmaker, please welcome Alexander Carson.
Thanks for coming to the film, guys, and thanks for staying. We have a whole bunch of people here, so I'd like Kyle, Jeff, Michael, Ben, Nick, Bill Martin, who else? Joe Perry. Is that it? Yeah? Why don't you guys come on up and we can all do this together, so I'm not...
Should we spread out and
so much in the hot
use the space here that's provided for us? So I know that you've already earned the cherished St. Elmo's Fire comparison with the film.
Right.
What every first-time director aspires to.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, but I was curious about some of the influences for the film, perhaps not cinematically, but from your life, from your experiences. I think you've said it was a fairly long writing process for you.
Yeah, it was a long writing process. I think a lot of it was, yeah, obviously influenced by, cinematic influences, obviously, but also literary influences. There's a lot of, harkening back to everything from Shakespeare, John Milton, all the way back to sort of Greek and Roman mythology. But I feel like it also has a sort of characteristic Canadian quality to this sort of personal kind of confessional writing in the tradition of Alice Munro, Leonard Cohen, Michael Ondaatje, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's a bit of a mosaic kind of influences that sort of distilled over time.
Excellent. And there's almost the feeling in there that this is like the fall of an empire, if it's almost even a small one, like kind of for these characters that there's like a certain inertia that maybe has arrived in their lives.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of about it's about long-standing friendships, for better or worse. Yeah, it's about these people who are sort of stuck in each other's kind of orbits and are both, because I find these sideways glances are not without reason. Friendships, especially long-standing friendships, are hopefully mostly good, but also complicated. Yeah. Tempestuous. Like I wrote a lot of these parts for people that I know, or at least they were inspired by people I know, and they ended up playing the parts in the end because we did a long casting process, which was very horrible. I don't know. I didn't want to make a movie, especially making a film. Making movies in Toronto. I definitely didn't want to make a film in Toronto that looked like a Toronto film. Where everyone kind of looks like a TV actor and is made up. And not these guys aren't all good looking. They are. But I remember talking with Nick afterwards, and he said, "Oh, what? We didn't do any makeup on this film?" I was like, "No." He said, "Ooh, no wonder I look like actual hell in this film." Yeah, we wanted it to have a very kind of, we wanted these people to look like actual people, and I thought that rather than getting actors, we should just get people who either are the character or understand the character or identify with the world that we're sort of participating in and commenting on. So maybe
we can go down the line a little bit and talk about when you came on board with the project and what struck you about both the script, I guess, that Alexander presented you with, and just kind of his vision for the project.
Yeah. So I mean, I had read the very first draft about 5 years ago of this script, and I mean, it had changed and morphed over these past 5 years, but I had the pleasure of seeing it evolve, and I kind of was thinking he might have wanted to cast me, but I didn't quite know until the funding actually came through, and he said, "Well, we're making this, and I want you to play the role of Danny." I went, "Wow, it's exciting and scary and all of that kind of stuff, but of course I'll do it. It's fun." I wanted to do it, it's true. But for me, I mean, I've worked with Alexander for so long, and I'm just such a champion of his work. And we support each other in our projects. So Yeah, for me, I mean, I was involved since the beginning, since I first met you in film school back in 2001. So that's my story, I guess. I mean, I didn't have a choice. I'll pass it on to Jeffrey.
Maybe, Jeff, if you want to tell us what your involvement with the film was as well, and we can do that as we go down.
Well, I suppose I came on a little bit later than Kyle. I met these two fine gentlemen at TIFF a few years ago, and we just hit it off really well. And Sandy was looking for somebody locally in Toronto to come on board and help him with the project. So I jumped at the opportunity. I mean, after reading the script, there was a lot in the script that I felt very relatable to. I mean, things about faith and friendship, and I mean, I've been down similar roads, maybe not with these people. I'm maybe more the outsider in this group, but I've experienced similar things in my life, and because of that, it was just something I really wanted to be involved with. Yeah.
I'm Mike. I was the cinematographer on the film, and I came on when Sandy asked me to.
But you had,
Yay!
but you had also worked with Kyle.
I
on,
shot The Valley
Develop.
Below for Kyle as well last year.
So you guys
this
had a
is-
pretty. Well, you went right into production on
It
this
wasn't.
one, right?
I had to work for this one, but eventually I convinced him, and I think it worked out. Yeah. No, I think it worked out well. I was. Sandy, do you want to help me out here?
I forced you to watch a lot of films
Basically,
to earn the job.
he forced me to watch a lot of 1970s dramas. Lots
Yeah.
of zooms.
No, but it was definitely a conversation where we wanted to get on the same page and to see if
Yeah, for
we could,
sure.
and obviously we did. But yeah, that was a big part of it. I think it was
Yeah.
kind of predetermining the palette and seeing if that could be a fit, and also yeah, I can't live without Mike. So
Did we answer the question?
yeah.
Sandy and I are brothers, so I knew that I was inevitably going to help him out with this project in one way or another. And then he asked me to audition for the role of Sam, and then to audition again, and then to audition a third time. And then I guess he decided that that was good enough. So, that's how I got involved with it. But that was the fun part. Yeah, I think I had to convince you more than anybody. You yeah. But well, it's the only choice now. I had already booked the month off work, so it was going to be a party either way. Yeah, that's how I got my foot in the door.
I met all this entire crew, or most of this crew, working on The Valley Below, which was Kyle's film, and then Sandy called me sometime in the summer before this film shot and asked me if I was interested, and I said that I was, and he asked me to audition. So I taped an audition, and he called me back and essentially told me that it was terrible and that I should go back and go to Kyle's house and get Kyle to tape another audition for me, so we did. We had a few beers before, and we did the audition, we played some bocce ball, and then that's how I got onto this project. And then Sandy flew me out to have many beers with BB so that we could pretend to be friends. And now we're still pretending to be friends a long time later. But yeah, that's essentially how I got on the film, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have to audition at all. Sandy.
Did you know that you were acting?
Well, Sandy, again, I read the script. I'd read a lot of early incarnations of the script, and I'd given him feedback, and a lot of it was like, yeah, this is really artsy. Make it a little more touch conventional. And I think you took the notes that you're good at taking notes because you take the notes that you like, and then you forget the ones you don't, which is good for a director to do because, it's you on the screen, right? But yeah, so I'd read, the script did change a lot. I think the ending is a bit more ambiguous now than it was off the top, as I recall. I don't know, there's so many different versions that it's tough to recall them all. But yeah, so obviously, like, I go way back with Kyle and Sandy, and actually, well, everyone here. Mike, we met. We were working on a project together in Toronto, which might be how you guys met. I don't even know. That was me, right? I connected you guys. I'm just gonna say I did. Yeah, exactly. But all you, like, me and Jeff go way back, and well, you're the only one I just met, and we're good friends now. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, the process, like, everyone is super tight knit. It's a small crew, and I think that breeds a different kind of movie that you see on screen, where it's like the performances are all kind of unique, and yeah, hopefully, you know, you sort of get the impression that everyone has an actual personal connection, because like everyone was like super close on set, and you know, it's like, you know, it's a bit like a family kind of thing. You know, it's like everyone's like working towards this thing and working their ass off and not making a lot of money and just trying to do it. So that's my 2 cents.
What were your major inspirations in terms of coming to those conclusions texturally?
I guess in terms of aesthetics, like we were influenced by films like Badlands, which was a film that was you know, shot in the 70s, but was, you know, participating in a lot of kind of pastiche and you know, a lot of references to the 50s, sort of hearkening towards an era that seemed you know, to quote the voiceover, like more tender, more kind, like a, you know, and so we wanted to do something similar with the film in terms of making a film that's definitely set in, you know, in the 2000 whatever, 15, 14, whatever, but that is sort of participating in a kind of aesthetic dialogue with the 90s, you know, during an era when these characters grew up, when they kind of felt a little bit more comfortable with the world. I mean, you know, looking back on the 90s, like, you know, the music video aesthetics, even which the film is kind of participating in that kind of, the politics of the time, it was definitely much more optimistic, like the pre-9/11 world versus the post-9/11 world. So we kind of wanted to make a film that captured that sort of unfortunate nostalgia, where you sort of feel like, you know, these characters are still sort of lingering on this idea of this kind of like their beatific youth and clinging to that. And so the aesthetics, like in terms of like, you know, a lot of the objects, like obviously like the Timex watches, the 90s Toyotas and Subarus, and you know, the Jill Sander costumes and the Calvin Klein, and like it's all about kind of this sort of
nostalgia in a sense, and
semi-unhealthy attachment to the past.
And we actually shot a decent amount of it on 16 millimeter, which, you know, a nostalgic format, I guess, at this point, right? And that's just something that also it just adds a certain texture to the film, right?
Yeah. I don't know if I answered the question. Did I? Oh, okay,
good. You talked about how you wanted the film to kind of be amorphous in its structure.
Yeah.
There are some things in it that do lend it its structure, be it the chapter breaks, kind of you know, the Lear overtones. For something that was kind of intentionally amorphous, you cut it yourself. When did you kind of know that it had reached its final state?
Well, I guess it was a really long process, actually, but the chapter breaks sort of came in a little bit later, actually, in the process, because we sort of thought that it was a little bit too kind of unwieldy and people couldn't sort of situate themselves. I don't know, actually. Like it just sort of eventually felt right.
You mentioned you didn't want it to be a typical Toronto film.
Right.
There's been a lot of there's been this piece that's kind of making the rounds here about how Vancouver never plays itself, but it seems in recent times there's a film like Diamond Tongues, which is a very Toronto-specific film. I think your film, you know, still kind of stays. It's rooted in Toronto for certain chapters as well. I'm curious. You know, from a Vancouver standpoint, is that a sign that maybe Toronto's like a cinema culture that's more comfortable in its skin right now? Is that something of this crop of filmmakers that are coming up that are perfectly okay grounding their films in the world in which they live?
Well, I think so. I hope so, at least. I mean, you know, there's so many films that are made in Toronto that are very kind of I don't want to say generic or kind of, but sort of made in this industrial model that's imitating Hollywood. Whereas in the last couple of years, I feel like Kyle and I have both made a lot of friendships with other filmmakers who are kind of, at our level or around our level, who are coming up and who are based in Toronto, who are making really interesting work. And I feel like it's actually changing a lot, and it's very exciting to feel like we're, part of that conversation, at least, where there's people making films in Toronto that are Toronto films, but that are not the Toronto films that we've seen, before, that are kind of fresh takes, I guess, on a familiar landscape. And that wasn't really a thing that we thought about. I don't think, making the film in Toronto, it was not about it being a Toronto film. It was sort of, that's where I happened to live at the time. And in fact, a bunch of it, obviously, as you saw, takes place in, in rural Ontario or rural Quebec, and which kind of mirrors my own personal narrative. Like, I grew up in Ottawa, and I spent a lot of time in Quebec as well, and so that was part of the trajectory of it. But kind of wanted to tie that sort of personal history together with the landscape that I happen to inhabit, and yeah, I think there's lots of great things happening in English Canadian cinema overall. And
Excellent. Well, we're very happy to have you here with the film. It screens again on Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
At the Cinematheque. So if you knew people who could not make it to the screening, please let them know. But let's thank Alexander Carson and his cast and crew for being here this evening.
Thank you guys so much for coming. This, as Curtis mentioned before, this was the premiere, so I'm very touched, very grateful. Thanks for enduring this with me.
Have a good night.